Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wayne Harris, and I'm here with my boys, Stanley and Sean. Stanley, say hi.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Stanley here. Oh, breaking up a little bit. Sorry about that. Okay. Hi. Hello, everybody.
Tell them what you do, buddy.
Okay, guys. I'm a program manager working in satellite communications. Been doing that for quite some time in the high tech. Very high tech, that is, and I'm here in Ottawa.
All right, Sean? Sean?
Hey, sorry about that. I was just trying. Yep. Hey, guys. Sean Best here. I am a program manager, a service delivery leader. I work for a high-tech company here in Atlanta. From Canada, born and raised, but been living in the United States for the last 6 years, and this is home for me. I love Georgia.
All right. And I'm Wayne. I'm living in Toronto, Canada. I am in cybersecurity consulting and have been doing IT for the last 25 years or so. But today is not about program management. It's not about IT. It's about the aftershocks of divorce in the home of the Black person and the Black community, and we're going to discuss it. Some of the folks on this line can relate to it, some from their parents and beyond, and we're going to get started with that conversation first. But before we get into the banter, I want to offer up some statistics on divorce in Canada and the United States, and let me know if you think these stats are surprising at all. So the divorce rate in the United States as of 2015 was 50%. The divorce rate in Canada as of this year, as of 2006, which is the last census we had a census done last year. That information will be available in 2017, 2018. It's 40% in Canada. Quebec has the highest divorce rate in Canada. The Maritimes, Newfoundland and Labrador specifically have the lowest at 46%. 18.6% of the kids live with one parent, and most are doing custody, shared custody. 16.5% of all marriages in Canada are same sex. So that's changing the dynamic on this side of the border. I'd be interested to hear what you know about that in the States, Sean. Divorce in general, regardless of race, is usually initiated by the woman and is known to increase debt to exponential levels. Average duration of a marriage in Canada is 14.5 years. The highest divorce rate in the world is Belgium. The lowest is Mexico. Men get divorced at the age of 44, women at the age of 41. 66% of all divorces is initiated by the woman. 85% of all men pay for support. I thought you guys would like that one.
Boy, I'm biting my tongue. I'm waiting for my turn.
You heard the breath, the inhale and the exhales when you said that.
All right. Let's keep on point. Live with their mothers. $400 is the average rate for one child, $610 for two kids. There are 6 reasons people get divorced. The love in a relationship runs out of steam, communication breakdown, unreasonable behavior by one or the other, infidelity, midlife crisis, money, and some sort of physical, psychiatric or emotional breakdown in one partner or the other. So that's the foundation for how we get to divorce. So based on all that, I'm going to open it up to the floor. Stanley, what say you?
Oh, wow. Very interesting statistics, which I have to say, I pretty much agree with some, disagree with some others. I would like, boy, I'm just thinking of how to attack this properly.
Well, how about attacking it We went holistically with the overall information. Bring it home to your situation, either this generation or the one before you, and the aftershocks of your situation.
Okay, I'll just jump right to the aftershocks, and then as the conversation goes on, we'll kind of move. I'll kind of flow in and out. The aftershocks I see right now is within a divorce. The aftershock is in most cases where, as your statistics say, the kids tend to be in most cases, be with the mother. That does, unless you have a parent who is truly in it for the welfare and the well-being and the mental status of the children, if they're not very mindful of that, because when you have the breakup of the family, regardless of who's to blame, the kids, in my experience, end up being angry. And they have many reasons to be angry. The breakdown of the family, breakdown of having both parents together, doing things together. And depending on where the child is, what is the theme music that's continuously playing around them, whether they're going to indirectly or indirectly pick up whatever that theme music is. And if the child is in a home where that is happening, it could come out negative against the parent who's not there. That's something that I see is a major thing that happens.
So that's interesting, because there wasn't any information on the mental state of the children. It was always focused on the parents and their situation and what they were dealing with. There was no mention of the effect on kids. So that's net new IP. We'll do more research, but thanks for bringing that to the table. Also, you talked about the vibrant attention in the house that could cause anxiety or stress in the kids. So it kind of downloads from the parents to the kids.
That's
Again,
right.
something that I didn't read about. Very cool. Sean, what say you?
So some stats that I happen to know from having heard them many times over. My apologies. I don't have the sources with me, but if you like, I can get those to you afterwards. But there's a book there's a couple of books I'd recommend that would help to discuss or help people to understand a little bit about the impacts of divorce. And that book is, let me make sure I get this one right now. I think it's called The Myth of Male Power. I could be wrong about that, but in any event, my understanding is that your stats are pretty much accurate. I think your number was right about 70% in terms of divorces being initiated by women. 70% of divorces are initiated by women.
Yep.
I did some looking to see if I could find some statistics about divorce as it relates to the Black community. And although I've seen some references to the fact that divorce is not tracked by race, so it's apparently not possible to articulate the distinction there. I did find this research paper is called "The Topography of the Divorce Plateau: Levels and Trends in the Union Stability in the United States After 1980." This was published in April 2003, so it's a bit old. It's in the Demographic Research. It's a peer-reviewed paper online, and it spoke specifically. I found one component that talked about Black families or marriages. It said, quote, "Rates of the late 1980s imply that 70% of all marriages to Black women end in separation or divorce." Now, it didn't offer any reasons why or any rationale behind how that data was derived, but I found it very interesting that it specifically, it talked about other races as well. I think for white women it was 47%, but for Black women it was significantly higher. And I also found it interesting that it expressed that particular statistic as it relates to women, because unless they are married to themselves or their pets, the other person they're getting divorced from is the man. So I don't know why it would say 70% of Black women when it would be just 70% of perhaps Black families, unless perhaps they're maybe married to non-black people. I don't know.
Or same sex.
Yeah.
Or same sex.
Well,
So
that was
let's say-
2003. That was in 2003. I don't know if they were tracking that data in 2003. I mean, I would. They didn't say that they were, but I'm not entirely certain. We have somebody who's joined us, Shaffarel.
Is Howard. Howard, welcome.
Hey.
Can you hear us,
His,
Howard?
sound is
Trying to
off.
get the sound going. Hang on.
All right, there you go.
There we go.
All right, cool. So Howard, just for your edification, glasses is Sean Best, formerly of Côte d'Ivoire, now in Atlanta, Georgia. Stanley Paul, formerly of LaSalle, now living in Ottawa. The bearded wonder. Tell us about yourself, Howard. Just give us a little background. 30 seconds. Who you are, what you do. Working on the sound. All right. So while we wait for Howard to get the tech going, 70% of marriages with black women end in divorce. We won't get any stats in Canada because we don't do race-based statistics in Canada. Those in the education system as of next year for the first time in the history of the country. So America is way advanced in its statistics and breaking it down by ethnic background. Would be what the divorce rates are in the educated versus lower educated. So high school only with a couple of courses versus advanced degrees. Do you think it would make a difference?
Depends on the woman. That's what No, well, you say it. No, I was stuck on the thought of a lot of. It says the statistic there that a lot of the marriages with black women end up breaking up. So I was just answering that question along those lines.
Okay.
And that's where I said depending on the female, and if she's well educated, making a good income, and her value of the relationship, the family, and the man that's in her life, I think that may have or may not have an impact.
Okay, so the whole point of this call is the aftershock to the family. So you talked about the tension in the mental state. Now you're saying that it depends on the woman. She seems to be first mover on initiating divorce. So this to me is net new information. I would think it was going to be around 50-50. Guys would say I want out, the lady would say she wants out. But women are initiating divorce more than men. What aren't women getting in marriage that they thought they were getting promised in courtship?
Well, maybe, can I jump into that one?
Go for it.
I think that the question should probably be the other way around, because the presumption is that a woman leaves a marriage because she is not getting something that she wants. We never ask if the man's getting what he wants because nobody really cares.
No, that's the truth.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
So I think the other way I'd like to state the question is, if I can play with the question a little bit here, is what incentive is there for a woman to remain in a marriage, and what incentive is there for her to leave the marriage?
Ooh, yes, that's a great
Because
question.
I think that answers the question about why 70% of women leave marriages.
Listen, there's no downside. There's no downside. What's the downside economically?
Right.
What's
That's
the
right.
downside economically if a woman says, listen, this guy, he snores, he's got a dad bod, you know, he used to buy me flowers, now he doesn't even buy me dandelions, I'm out. And I know that every mechanism in the system is designed with the wind at my back. I'm going to get the fro, or I'm going to get the money coming from the government. I'm going to garnish his wages. I'm going to win more than my fair share in any divorce proceedings on average.
Yep.
Why would I stay?
Exactly.
Why would I stay?
In fact, on average, and again, my apologies for not being able to quote the exact source in this, but I'll see if I can find it afterwards. On average, after divorce, oftentimes a man's income will go up. However, the woman's net worth ends up being more than the ex-husband's net worth.
Okay, so I've seen both sides of that coin, where the women, once they know they're going to get paid and don't have to put up with buddy, they pack it in. They just say, listen, I don't need to work. I've got cash coming in. He's a doctor, he's a lawyer, he's a this, he's a that, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 G's a month. I'm going to Starbucks. I'm good. I'm going to Holt Renfrew when stuff isn't on sale, because I know the money's coming in. It's good. It's basically a pension for her. And the younger she can cash in during his highest earning years, the better it is for her. Now, that sounds calculated and malicious. I'm not saying all women are calculated and malicious, but what I am saying is that when women get counsel on divorce from other people who have been divorced, they know every mechanism available to them to maximize their outcome at the end of whatever time period, including the legal fees.
Now, question for you on that point. Do you think that men also spend time getting themselves acclimated to the benefits, the financial benefits of divorce in the same way that women do?
Differently.
I don't see how.
Go ahead.
I don't see how they could. I don't see how they can win.
Right. So Howard, just for
Especially-
everybody on the call, just introduce yourself and tell people what you do and where you are.
Sorry, guys. I'm Howard Cole. I don't know where the rest of you guys are, but I used to be a Montreal man myself. Grew up in Montreal, Little Burgundy. Went to World West Academy and moved out here to Toronto. So I'm currently working in Hamilton at the fourth biggest financial institution in Southern Ontario as IT security professional. And that's what I do.
Welcome. So glad to have you on the call.
Yep.
So Sean is in Atlanta. He's a program manager. Stanley is in Ottawa. He's also a program manager.
Okay.
So we're all IT guys here on the call.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. So quick survey. If you're married at this present time and living with your spouse, raise your hand. Okay.
There you go.
So we got a 1 in 4.
25%.
That's right.
75%.
So we're below
75%. 75%. No?
Yeah,
Well, I'm gonna ask the questions and you guys do the talking, since you guys have actually experienced.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about this from the perspective of. There's a lot of ways we can look at this. We can look at this. I know we've been talking about the benefits and the drawbacks to divorce. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit, because I think part of the aftershocks to the home and the Black community really are the result of the divorce happening, and we're looking at what drives divorce. Why do divorces happen, right? And if 70% of divorces that happen today are filed by women, that's a notable statistic. There's something happening there that is unusual. You'd presume it'd be half-half. I don't know if we really touched on why we believe. I think we started touching on it a little bit, but why we believe that number is so high.
So we did address that. So Stanley and I, when we did our MBAs, we had something called a pestle analysis. So what's the political rule of the day for women and men getting divorced? What is the law? What does the government say? Spousal abuse. Name me your closest man's shelter where you live.
I can't even recall one.
I will tell you.
Shelter.
I will tell you.
I can't recall one.
in the United States, there are 2,000 shelters for domestic violence, victims of domestic violence who are women. There is one for men. It's in Arkansas.
Right.
Wow.
But listen, all over the system is set up, as I think we touched on briefly. The system, the whole economic system is set up to uplift and carry the lady. carry the woman. There's no real infrastructure there to support a man. In a case you have a woman who has who's a single parent right now with a child due to divorce, you have this agency to help you, that agency to help you, all this spots to help uplift and bring up infrastructure there to support the woman. What if you have in the same situation where you have the man who has the children? There is no infrastructure, nothing set up in place to help bring up the man with that family with the kids. Men are is expected to be able to take care and support and bring the meat to the table, whereas the system is set up as if we're back in the 30s, 40s, where and that's why the system came into being. The system was put into place where you had a man who had a wife who predominantly stayed at home raising the children. He got fed up, packed up, and he was gone, and the woman was left there with a house and 2, 3, 4 children, and she's had nothing to do, couldn't do anything. So what happened? They put the system into place, but the system hasn't evolved to the new norm, which we have today. So the men out there wallowing in the wilderness, and we have the whole infrastructure for the women.
And I'm very concerned. Sorry about that. I'm very concerned about the system evolving, right? Because I don't know. I'm sure you've noticed that there is a huge feminist movement that's going on right now, right?
Well, you started in that.
Yeah, sorry. There is a huge feminist. Right. There is a huge feminist movement going on right now, and I remember when it kind of looked like it was the men that are actually doing it. There was a huge male chauvinistic movement that was going on that the world perceived. Right, and a lot of this is a lot of what I think we're going through is backlash from a lot of that, and now looking at this feminine movement on the rise, everything that you see in pop culture, everything that you see being catered to women nowadays, women seem to actually gravitate more to that because they think they feel like they all identify with it, and they really don't.
Okay, when we want to talk about feminists, I just want to, before I drop this. If you want to talk about feminists, let's really start looking at, there's 2 types of feminists out there. There's the white feminist, and then there's the black feminist.
Oh, yeah.
Because listen, when we have the white feminist is when we had the inequality between the white man and the white woman. So the feminist movement sprung up at that point in time to try and bring the white female up to the white male. But if you look at the black family, the black male, black female, we basically both got our rights at the same time, male and female, right? So you had the white woman trying to catch up to the white male, and then you have the black male and female who, when we finally got our rights, all came in at the same spot. So there's a there's a difference at where the black woman was, and the white woman trying to how do you say, bring her into the whole overall feminist mix to fight against the white man. But the black woman was always at the same spot as a black man initially.
Yeah.
And then that is what created, I find, a big divide now between the black male and the black female.
Yeah, huge.
So again, great point, Stanley. The bottom line here is if you look at feminism and what it means for Caucasian women, it means one thing. It's about equal pay, equal power, my body, my right, and so forth. Black feminism is I can make as much as you, I can do what you do, and I'm going to use that economic leverage to challenge your authority in the home. So
Amen.
The white women are saying, hey, I'm still going to allow you to be daddy at home. You can still run the house and barbecue on weekends, cut the grass, and go fishing and play golf. I'm not fighting you on the home front, but outside, when we leave here, I want equal dollar, equal time, equal access. The black women seem to have taken it one step further and brought that into the home, where they say, well, now, the proverbial 50-50. No marriage is 50-50. I'm 100% in my space. My wife is 100% in her space, and the spaces that we overlap, we believe in unity of thought. So when the kid says, hey, I want to go play outside with these badass kids, and they ask their mother, she says, go ask your father. And when I say, whatever I say as the law, my wife falls right in line and says, yes, that's the way we're going to go. And the same thing, if they've asked her first and they come to me, they get in trouble not for asking her, but for asking me after she already laid down the law, because I fall in line under what she said to keep unity of thought so the kids don't play us against each other. And they're very smart children, right?
Right.
So the aftershock to the family is this seismic tremor of insecurity. Okay? I don't know if we're going to eat. I don't know if we're going to live. From the kids' perspective, I don't know if they, because they don't like each other, whether they don't like us and whether we're the problem. Because that's what I felt when my parents said, adios amigos.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we're the problem. There's three of us. Maybe if we weren't here, they'd still be together, and no one's telling me otherwise, because I don't know about your part of the Black community, but in my part of the Black community, we don't tell anybody anything.
Yeah.
Everyone suffers alone.
Yeah.
And no one talked to the kids because we didn't have a voice, because we're children and we're to be seen and not heard. So no one asked us how we felt about the divorce. You understand?
You know, I mean, on that point, Wayne, you're right. There is a huge difference between our parents' generation and us, because my experience with respect to divorce or broken family is on the other end of that equation. My parents are still together, but I was early on when my marriage ended, was very concerned about how it was affecting my boys. They became very clingy. I can tell they were afraid, they were worried. They on many occasions would kind of imply or say, hey, I wish you and mommy were back together again. And it was hard. I mean, I remember looking for help for my kids in terms of some counseling to help them deal with what's happening, because it was, you know, obviously it's dramatic and very hard to deal with. And I also had to figure out how do I explain to them that it's not their fault, because I can see in their eyes they were oftentimes going out of their way to be super nice. And I think that the thought process is, or the emotions are, that if I'm really, 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 really nice, maybe they'll get back together again. And I needed for them to understand that it had nothing to do with them. It was not their fault. There's nothing that they did to make that fall apart. There's nothing they could do to fix it. This is between me and their mother. And I did find a book that I would like to recommend to anybody who's watching this who is going through that as a parent with your kids. It's called Mom's House, Dad's House by Iselina Ricci. It's a great book for helping children to understand what's happening. It talks about some of the emotions that they're going through, some of the things that they may be doing or saying, and how to help them to understand what's really happening and to feel a sense of security and a sense of safety. Because I actually got that book, and there are sections I would read to my kids, and I found even when I would read those sections, say, you know, does this describe how you feel? Immediately after having the conversation, it would give them, I could see a sense of relaxation happen, where they realize I'll be okay. I'm not going to be left to suffer. I'll make it.
No, thanks for the recommendation. Good job there. Mom's house, dad's house.
Yep.
Very cool. So listen, again, aftershocks in the family. So I think we covered that, and we added a new perspective from what we saw through our research, is that the mental state of the kids is collateral damage, because you're fighting him or you're fighting her, and they're like Aleppo. There, whoever gets killed, and they should be considered during the process. That means if the process can be done quickly and fairly, it's better for everyone's emotional state to get it done and move on, rather than dragging it out 1, 2, 3, 4 years and having the children have to choose sides because they're either loyal or disloyal to somebody, and getting, distracted academically, socially, emotionally.
The children end up being collateral damage.
Exactly.
Right? Because in both black and white relationships, I've seen it just about everywhere. Right? Some couples who are more mature and more grown and more thinking, and really do care about their children, like they will do what you're proposing. But in most cases that I've seen, that I've been around, usually the children are collateral damage.
acrimony, vitriol. Go ahead.
Sadly, the children in some cases is used as a pawn because I've seen it both from a male and from a female perspective, where it's either the male or the female basically bad talk or saying negative stuff about the parent, the other parent.
Yeah.
And
No.
in a ploy to basically hurt that parent by having the children turn against that parent or not want to spend time with that parent. And it happens on both ends. Male and female do this. So if you don't have two parents who are taking the kids' mental well-being into putting that as the forefront versus vengeance, they sadly are collateral damage in these scenarios.
Right. Yeah. So what we see here is when you focus on your partner who now becomes your adversary, the tunnel vision of the negative emotion towards that person doesn't just stay with that person or directed towards that person. It changes who you are as a person because now you're all caught up in this negative emotion and you still have to parent. Depending on the age of the children, understand what's going on. And to Sean's point, they internalize it and no one's asking them how they feel.
Yep, that's right.
My generation, no one asked me how I felt.
Right.
Right. Getting back to, so that's the family. Now let's look at the community. So there's a black community, and again, whether you're married to someone who's black or not black, the children are black. Okay? So black with anything is black.
Yeah, in this society.
From a societal, from a societal perspective.
Yes.
So if they're biracial, congratulations, but they're still considered black in the eyes of the court system, especially the political system and the economic system. So what does divorce do to the one race on the planet of unity, devoid of economic community at any grand level? There's pockets. You can buy a roti somewhere. You can get a patty somewhere, and you can get your hair weaved somewhere. And there's always a guy who will sell you a pair of travel fox. But business is not something that we do really well outside of the Caribbean and Africa. In North America, with a bounty of resources, very little from an economic development perspective. So what does a community lose when fathers and mothers in the black community don't stay together? Howard.
The cycle needs to be broken, right? And the cycle is just going to continue, right? And I think even if some black families that stay together are definitely stronger, right? But I mean, if you're talking about broken homes, especially in the black community, that cycle and that stigma, that stereotype is still going to continue. The children are going to, in most cases, gravitate to that same type of negative outcome that you have had or seen in life, right? So
I wanted to jump in here really quickly. So, and this is going to come back to your question you're asking, Wayne. The statistic we didn't talk a lot about was, okay, after a divorce, they say about 90% of divorce cases, when it comes to custody, settle on joint custody. 10% of those cases become a battle over custody for the children. Of that 10%, 90%, I think it's between 90 and 95% of the time, the children, when there's a dispute over custody, go to the mother. Over 90% of the time. So what that basically says is, if you're a man and you decide to fight for the custody of your children, you will lose access to your children.
While paying a lot of money for it.
Well, and that's the next point I was about to make. So, when you look at the effect it has on children, you got to look at the effect it has on the parents. So what ends up happening is you have a father who does not have access to his children, who he's paying for, who he's not allowed to see, who hate him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that about sums it up.
that sums it up. And what ends up happening, of course, now is that, and to Stan's earlier point, there are no support services at all for men in that situation. There are support services, there are peer groups, there are G.I. Jane classes, there's the Oprah Winfrey Show. I mean, you name it, there's an endless supply of pampering and support services and food and housing and stuff for women going through the end of a marriage. There is absolutely nothing out there for men. The impact that has, of course, now is that you have a man who is broken financially, who is probably homeless because he no longer has the house. And I have two friends in specific that I know who were making six figures, were vice presidents at a bank, who were living in their cars. Okay? They're out of the house. Their children no longer have access to them on a regular basis. And particularly when you're talking about in the black community, you have young children, black children, I'm going to specifically focus on the black males, the boys, who now no longer have a male role model in the house. There's a good chance that if the marriage ended with a lot of animosity, that he's hearing a lot of negative things about his father from his mother. So now he grows up without a male role model. Now, what happens when children, especially boys, grow up without a male role model in their household? They grow up angry. They grow up confused. They grow up without a sense of direction or purpose, and they grow up without a sense of rules and honoring rules. One of the things that men bring to a household that's different than what women bring to households as far as raising children goes is fathers allow children to explore and to make mistakes, but fathers also have a very strong sense of fairness and following the rules. And fathers tend to, generally speaking, fathers tend to enforce those rules so children begin to understand there are boundaries around within which I need to operate, and when I try to move beyond these boundaries, my father will let me know.
Fathers also know what it is that they go through life as a male, right? Fathers also understand, especially black fathers, they also understand how hard it is and what kind of challenge their son is going to be up against coming up through life, right? Your black mother or even your white mother cannot grow a male child and teach that child how to become a man.
Man, that is correct. I mean, there's a point in time where a mother is particularly needed in a child's life, and that's usually when they're in their adolescent stage, from a baby until the point where they're maybe about middle school. But there's a point in time, specifically referring to young black males, where they're no longer children, but they're not men. They're in that very in that very awkward space where they need someone to give them guidance. How do I get from where I am to becoming a man?
Right. I see this. I see this in my life.
Mother cannot give them that direction.
Sorry, I see this in my situation because I have a 22-year-old son, and I'm telling you, it literally feels like he's 13, 14, 15. Right? Just the way they act. Right. They didn't get that upbringing from my guidance anyway. Right. So and I see that in my son. He's the only son I have. Right. And he's got two sisters. He's got a mother who, he can run to whenever he wants because, dad's a little too rough for her.
You apply the rules too hard.
I'm applying the rules too hard. Squeezing yeah.
And one thing, if I could throw my 2 cents in here, okay, just to answer the first question that Wayne said, what does it take away from the community when you have the breakup of the family? I say one of the things that doesn't transcend pass through a breakup in most cases is the growth of wealth within a family. When you have a man who's making good money and then he'll end up having to be paying child support or spousal support of another home, plus at the same time maintain his own living and his own living expenses, all the funds potentially that could be saved if you were together as a unit is now going out the door, paying the expenses on that end, because in most cases the mother is depending on the father to continue living and maintaining a household on her end, and then the father has to maintain his own household and his own living expenses.
Right. But also, and also the son looking at you as a role model, right?
Yes.
Like,
and that's
all of us probably have really decent jobs, right? And so your son being there and seeing you as a role model and seeing what you do to provide for the family,
But
Sorry to cut you off there, but
no, that's okay.
yeah.
But the bad part, another bad part of this now with what I think Sean was saying. Oh no, I think what you were saying, Howard, is when the father is not around or is not allowed to be around, let's say. And in the case of divorce, some women tend to pull the children in closer and tighter because you have to break up the family, so they want to keep the children closer, so they'll do more, they'll go above and beyond, and in hopes, and I really believe so, in hopes that the child will not leave
Yeah,
at
listen,
some sort of point.
it becomes a war game of the minds and the loyalty of the children, and it's a zero-sum game. So they know that in order for them, all of a sudden, it's I love you 100% father, I love you 100% mother. All of a sudden, after divorce, is you can only love me 100%. You can no longer love him at all, and that's the only thing that I consider to be fair. 100% love for me, zero love for him because he did me
Yes.
dirty. In my mind, whether
Or she.
or she. So here's the deal: in the United States, black women make more money than black men on average. So when they divorce, she makes more than he does, but she still gets all the custody, the court systems, and everything's still in her favor, but she's making more money than the guy on average. 70% of all university students that are black in the United States are women. And the men are not going to higher education, or they're choosing different fields. They're truck drivers, they're HVAC, which can be paying really good money depending on where you are. But the ladies are firing at a higher economic level than the guys in the black community in the United States.
Well, there's a lot of subliminal messaging out there for women, and it's working.
Yes.
It's working for them.
That's correct. I mean, and on top of that, Wayne, that statistic isn't specific just to the black community. It's across the board.
Yes.
60% of college students and degree graduates are women. The number of degrees or degreed young men coming out of college, black or white or any other color, has been declining steadily in the last 20 years. There's a lot of reasons, potential reasons behind that. But a lot of it really, I believe, stems back to something we talked about earlier, and that is the feminization of school.
Yep.
Sit down, be quiet, behave like the girls, no rough play. You can't play tag anymore because it's too physical. You can't play dodgeball because it's too physical. You need to wear pink to school today because we need to celebrate, raise money for breast cancer. No one talks about prostate cancer because nobody cares.
Yep.
So all this subliminal messaging that men don't matter. If you're a little boy, you don't matter. You're not allowed to hit the girls even if they hit you. And there are tons and tons of YouTube videos of girls beating the snot out of boys, the boys walking away, and the other people around them sitting there laughing. So the school has become a very unfriendly place for boys to be. They've also found when they do studies about children how they're being scored in their performance in school, when the teacher is not aware of the sex of the student, they will tend to score the performance of children, boys and girls, in the same way. They tend to score equally. When the teacher is aware of the sex of the children, generally speaking, the girls tend to get scored higher than the boys do. It's a very unfriendly and uninviting and unsupportive environment for boys in school today. That's one of the reasons why a lot of them are dropping out and deciding to take trades or just not work at all.
Well, listen, then add one other variable into that, add race. So, guys versus girls, and then you add, on the bottom of the spectrum in North American society is a black male. If you don't know as Gianque versus Jonathan, and the resumes are the same, both will get equal pay. But as soon as you see the Afrocentric name of that individual, they get discounted or dismissed. And these studies have been done double blind for years, and it always comes up the same. As soon as the race is brought into question, they are summarily dismissed or seen as less promising immediately as soon as the race is introduced. But before that, He was amazing. As soon as I found out the race, he's diminished.
Well, here's the thing. I want to ask you guys your opinion real quick, Wayne, just before you wrap up on this one here, is on that particular point. And this is just my personal experience. I don't have any statistics to back this up. But as a consultant for 10 years, I've worked in a number of institutions. I've worked in 2 countries and in very large financial institutions, as well as in the cable and wireless industry. And in all my experience in the last 25 years, I can count on one hand the number of male black executives or black males in a professional setting and with professional titles in comparison to black females who vastly outnumber black males, even if names are Shaniqua or whatever the Afrocentric name might be. My experience has been black women outnumber black men dramatically in a professional setting. Is that? Do you have any perspective there?
Well, I'm gonna give you my one anecdotal answer. And hiring patterns are this: white male, white female. In Toronto, up until about 15 years ago, Asian male, Asian female. Now it's South Asian male, South Asian female, Asian female.
Yep.
Black female, black male. So if the 4 of us have jobs, it's because everybody above us couldn't hold it down. So you got to give yourself props, because I'm telling you, it hurt them hard to hire us.
It's right? a rare breed.
We had to be that good. We had to be that good. So if you have a job at a name brand company and you're there and you're doing your job for multiple years, I'm not saying you're Einstein, you are very, very good at what you do, because there are 6 options before they hired you.
And you got thick skin. Very thick skin.
Comes with the territory.
Comes with the territory.
Mm-hmm. So in the interest of time, it's 10 o'clock to my clock right now. Mm-hmm. I think we handled this very, very well. We added a perspective of the children. We added a perspective of economics, the court system, the legal system, the media in general. We talked about the shelters for one gender versus the other, and who initiates divorce and why, because of the economic gains and the dismissal of the infant collateral damage in a lot of cases. So in our community, where the women are in those positions of power and they're making more money than the men, there's a chance that they're going to say, listen, you're dead weight. I'm just going to go, and everything in the system is designed to have my back, because you, with your $40,000 or $50,000 a year, and me with my $80,000, $90,000 a year, I just don't want to deal with it anymore. I'm going to go for what they call the BBD, the bigger and better deal. I'm out. I'm going to find somebody who's making 120, 150, 200, and go with that guy, because you're not a winner. Because winning might mean dollars in the most capitalistic country on the planet.
Yeah. Well, that's not even just the U.S. I mean, think about it. You know, it's I know you're wrapping up here, Wayne, but I can't count how many songs that have the basic theme, I don't need no man. Right?
That's what I was talking about, yeah.
That's exactly what you're talking about, Howard. And, that is the common theme. That's the common, that's the mantra now.
Beyonce is the spearhead.
Beyonce is spreading that nonsense, and believe me, but it won't be long before she leaves Jay-Z and taking half his money, just like Angelina Jolie just ditched Brad, and she's gonna take half his money.
And that is gonna be a time, but like that's gonna be a huge bomb. Like seriously, when that happens,
and it won't shock me. It won't shock. I mean, it's
not shocking me either. None of us are shocked about it. I'm checking my watch.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
None of us are shocked about it, right? But when this happens, this is going to speak volumes to women all around the world, because what Beyonce does is takes it beyond black people. She takes it because she crosses over to white folks as well. They love her.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so 10:02. So final words, Stanley.
Well, you guys, this was a very good conversation. We touched on quite a few points, and I have to be honest. You guys would have seen. I'm sure you guys saw me smiling quite a bit, because I bit my tongue. I had to, because this conversation could have gone so many different places, right? So Anyways, it's sad. Yes, there are some major ramifications within the breakdown of the family after divorce, be it the male and his pocketbook, the female, and in most cases her feelings of self-worth and self-esteem after. But it all depends on who pulled the trigger. But then the saddest part of all of this for me is the children, right? When the children are being devoid of having two loving parents who putting them first and taking their well-being above any sort of vengeance.
Thank you, sir. Howard, last words.
I'd love to have more conversations like this. I don't think you should have to bite your tongue, right? I'd like to hear some more thought-provoking conversations, and I think we need to expand on a lot of them, right? Maybe we can't capture them all in a session, in the 1-hour session that we have. But my last words, if I could put some food for thought out there for the next conversation, maybe, or a different conversation down the road. A lot of things that we touched on tonight, we all know, everybody knows, it's not just us, everybody knows that it is just blatantly unfair, right? This is how society is. Why is it allowed to happen?
Yes.
Okay. I like it. Sean, final words.
I'm going to, first of all, Howard, I'm so glad that you joined us. You started touching on a topic that I know makes some people uncomfortable. But the reality of it is I'm a kind of a guy that I'm going to call it like it is. And if I'm wrong, I have no problem admitting that I'm wrong. But the bottom line is a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, we kind of skirt across the top of this on a few of our hangouts. I know, Howard, this is your first one. And the current strain and the narrative of feminism that we're living under right now touches all these topics.
Yes.
We touched in this. We touch it on this topic here. We touch on a couple of other places. I know it's a very sensitive topic, but at the end of the day, look, I'm about speaking to truth. If I'm wrong, if I misstate or misread a statistic, I've got no problem saying, "Hey, you got me on that." But I've done a lot of homework, a lot of research, and let's just say there's a lot to talk about there. It may be uncomfortable, but that's what makes these hangouts interesting.
Oh, screw the uncomfortable, man. We got to talk about it.
No, it's not as uncomfortable, guys. Yep. That's some sores are still open and not closed yet.
Oh well.
So,
yeah. Oh well. Yeah. Like it's
no, but
it's creating damage. Like it's creating widespread damage. It needs to be dealt with. It needs to be seen for what it is.
It needs to be discussed.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So maybe we need a part 2 because we're missing 3 of our soldiers. So we have a challenge here with the hangout. We can only have 5 people at a time, but we've got about 7, 8 people now who want to be a part of this because the conversations are real.
So how can we expand on that, Wayne?
We'll take that offline and we'll figure it out. We're working on some other options. We just have to figure out how serious people are and how committed they are before we start looking for other options. We're going to get 3, 4, 5 people every week. It may be a different rotation of 5 people, and the others will go YouTube, and maybe we can orchestrate that time. It's going to be this 5 and the others will be on YouTube, and we'll just rotate on YouTube and keep it at the 5 and keep this format.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is this: the family is affected. We have now a culture of quick fix, disposable everything, disposable families, disposable marriages, disposable everything. So we need to kind of look at what the long term and what the end game is going to be, especially for a community that is targeted literally by certain forces in North America under the new regime that's coming in January 20th of 2017 down in there in the United States. And we need to galvanize ourselves, not, pull ourselves apart. 5 fingers, each finger could be broken easily, but when it's in the shape of a fist, a little harder to break the fingers. And it's not from a violence perspective, but from a unifying perspective. We said last week, Howard, you weren't here, that there are 3 reasons people get divorced: income, infidelity, insecurity. Income's a big deal in the United States for the black male. Those who aren't incarcerated or those who don't have, because of the war on drugs and the war on this and the war on that, there's about 1.5 million black guys in jail, and this is just breaking the family up. Forget about divorce. We're just talking about incarceration, which is a big problem south of the border. So we have to look at that. But we can work on insecurity, which I think is probably the one that most people don't consider of the three ins. Income and access. We can work on that. It's pretty straightforward fix. Infidelity, again, that is a pretty straightforward fix. It's a decision. But insecurity may have a foundation that's before the marriage. It didn't manifest itself until after the marriage.
This is long before the marriage and generations of it.
All right. And there's a stress of being a person who looks like us in this society when we know that we're being judged at a different level than other groups who have been here less time than us. We've been here 200-300 years, some of us, Nova Scotia, Chatham, and so forth. Those of us, I'm first generation. Stanley's born in Trinidad. Sean's born in Canada. Howard, you're born where? Jamaica, right? Yeah. So 2 of us are Canadian, 2 of us are immigrants to Canada, but we've been in Canada more than 30 years, all of us. So the bottom line is we need to have some sort of unity of thought, some sort of value system that works for the women, works for the guys, works for the kids, works for the community, so we can elevate and rise. And there are a lot of people with a lot of ideas, but we just need to pick something and move forward with enough mass that it makes sense. And doesn't scare anybody, but if it does, so be it, if we're unified.
Well, here's my thing. My last thought on that is the only way we're going to make any traction there, guys, is if we ask the hard questions. And the hard questions aren't pretty. The hard questions put some blame in our court, and we got to own our shit.
Yep, asking them and answering truthfully, owning up to it. Yeah,
that's right. Some of it isn't pointing fingers elsewhere. Some of it's pointing fingers in the mirror.
Yeah. And I think this forum gives us a sense of accountability to each other, that if we say we're going to do something, if we say this is the mandate and we all agree on it and we understand the reasons why we're moving forward, then it's on us to keep each other as men accountable to each other. Say, yeah, I'm going to do more of that and less of this. And let me know how that went for you this week. I think just that sort of communication and keeping it, not to point the finger and say you didn't do what you're supposed to do, but to say, hey, this is what you said you're going to do. We've explained the benefits to you as to why this should be done. You're not doing it, so we'd like to understand why.
I've taught my son, we talked about it earlier, the need to have a man in a young man's life. The one thing that a man has and all that he has is his word. If your word isn't good, you've got nothing.
Well, and we'll end on that. So thanks for coming out. Howard, thanks for joining.
Enjoyed the show? Like, share and subscribe. And thanks for joining us in The Man Cave.